episode 10 of the Larry Weekly. Yes, it's already our 10th episode, and for that reason, we decided to make a live episode. I'm Britt, and today's episode is brought to you by me, Sofiane, and a special guest. Today's episode will be a live episode on closeting in the industry. So bring your snacks, call your friends. It's going to be an epic one. If you want to ask us any questions, to jump in and then just explain something from your point of view, quote something, or just express, like I said, your opinions, tweet us at hashtag TLWLive, and we will answer everyone we can. Thank you.
Before we start, no shout out to all the members of the Supreme Court, just because, as Olivia Rodrigo said, we kind of hate you guys. Like, not kind of, just hate you. But shout out to all the organizations, demonstrators, abortion centers, every person concerned fighting back for the abortion right. And just to be like super real and honest, we're very, very sorry for what is happening in the USA. And what happened in the USA less than a week ago. Abortion is a fundamental right. No one had the right to take this away from us because of your personal beliefs. We all know it's a pro-birth and not a pro-life. Otherwise, we would focus on education, equality, inclusion, health for those babies to have a good life, but it's just not the case. Women and people concerned by abortion deserve protection, and we all know it's not going to stop abortion. It's just going to make it unsafe and fatal. So this episode is dedicated to the abortionfunds.org. So please give, even if you have 1 cent. And we believe in you. We believe in us. We will fight back. It was the kind of little propaganda moment. We're not from the USA personally, but I think that everyone was kind of like shocked by what happened.
And being able to bring attention to it and bring support from anywhere is just really important to be able to do. So putting it on the platform just for us to be able to say that obviously we're all fighting this fight for you guys as well.
Yeah, and we have like a few followers, so it's also cool if we're using this platform for like, useful stuff. Like, I mean, talking about closeting in the industry is also useful, and that's also why we're doing this episode today. So the little plan for today, if you want to know, if you want to go in, go out, you do you. So the first part will be history of closeting in the music and entertainment industry. The second part will be how does it relate to Larry? And the third part will be how does closeting work, contracts, all of this, that like difficult part will be done by Tina. Yeah, and of course we'll have like breaks between each part. We'll do like speed rounds, answer questions, discuss about different point of views. Definitely like feel free to just jump in and just express your opinion. So yeah, we promised you a special guest tonight. So here she is. Please welcome Tina. So at Tina28LH on Twitter. Yeah. So I mean, the subject of closeting is super complex, and so yeah, we wanted to have people that really knew about the subject. And I talked with Tina. The discussion that we had was like so interesting, and I felt like she really knew a lot. And she also filled the form to be a guest. If you want to film the form, definitely feel free. It's in the link tree in our bio. Yeah, and it works because Tina is now a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tina, do you want to like, I don't know, present yourself? Do you have something to say?
I mean, nothing planned, but I can always say stuff. No, I'm excited to be here. I think closeting in the music industry is something I've kind of done a lot of research on. I was in the music industry for a little bit. I'm not gonna go into that too much. It's not what I do now. But I was also a huge NSYNC fan. I might be aging myself a lot, but I went through all of this with like Lance Bass, and whenever I found Larry, it just like struck a chord with me that I've went through with so many artists in the past. And so when I dug a little bit deeper, it's just something that like I appreciate their music on such a different level and as artists, but then like hearing their story, it's just something that I think needs to be told. And closeting is something that people are aware of, but I don't think they really get the extent of it and how like common it is in the entertainment industry. So I just think it's something that like everybody really could learn more about, myself included. And there's so many people in this fandom that have so much good information, and so many people are so knowledgeable. And I think if we just keep getting that out there, it'll spread and it'll be great. It'll lead towards really good things. So.
Oh my god, I told you she was like super interesting. I could have never said that. Yeah, absolutely. No issue. We're so happy to have you as a guest. So please do you if you want to go crazy.
Okay, I might.
That's okay. It's a safe place for us. Just like Harry's concert, you know, like we just are trying to. I think there is a request.
Hi,
So
sorry.
Eris.
I think the thing is, it's such a sensitive matter to bring up, like closeting and stuff, and a lot of people will deny it because obviously they don't know the ins and outs of the industry, especially sort of like, not to stereotype, but a lot of solos will be like, oh, well, this is outrageous, why would they do that? But that's the thing, they don't really know the extent of it all and how like hard like management will push to maintain the image of a singer in order to rake in the money and rake in the sort of revenue.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a business at the end of the day, and I'll kind of touch on that later probably, but I think it's also a sensitive subject because not only closeting in the industry, but just being in the closet in general. So like even if they're not being forced to, they're still coming to terms with themselves as people. So we don't even know at what point the closeting is coming from. You know, it's just such a nuanced subject outside of the industry, just like in the world, you know. So it's hard. It's a hard one to talk about, and I think that's why some people stray away from it a little bit. But
I think another thing, it comes with fame as well. Like, you could feel comfortable with yourself, and then as soon as you hit the spotlight, you're constantly getting like rude remarks and comments spat at you, which almost forces you back in.
right.
And that can be difficult for a lot of artists who had themselves in a place where they were comfortable with who they were, and then obviously hearing people say like that they don't agree with it and they no longer support them because of that can really affect them mentally and career wise.
Right. And everything is magnified.
Yeah, but like it also like goes with, I think, the image. Just, you know, like the celebrity just has to be this perfect person that obviously they are absolutely not. But yeah, image is pretty much everything in the Hollywood industry, I believe.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I think another thing is like, so for example, a lot of people will bring up the fact like singers like Girl in Red and stuff who from the beginning of their career have explicitly stated their sexuality and stuff, so that kind of becomes a trademark for them. But obviously for people like Harry and like Louis, like they didn't really make it known like the first 6 years, like they didn't explicitly say it out loud, which is then sort of where that whole image of them being heterosexual and purely into women comes along. And then if they were to say anything differently, then that's when they'd sort of come with a lot of backlash.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to jump around too much, but just we've mentioned image a lot, and in terms of their contracts, their image is completely controlled by the contract. And there was Britain's Got Talent's contract that got released, and it was saying that they can adapt, change, alter like your entire image. So they own all of that. So regardless, even if Harry and Louis were out at that point, as soon as they signed into that contract, whatever image that their team and the record label like want them to have, they're essentially going to have that image. So they have control of that. So it's like, I forget which one of you said it, but it's like you're almost forced back into the closet. Even if you knew who you were, once you hit that spotlight, you're almost forced back in.
Exactly, and I think it was the brother group Jedward who were on the X Factor a few years back, like outwardly came out and said that they'd caught glimpses of both Little Mix's and One Direction's contracts, because obviously they had to sign one as well, and they both stated that the amount of control the management had on the boys and the girls were like ridiculously tight, and they weren't allowed to do or really say anything that breached that contract without facing legal issues.
Right.
I'll try and find the tweets.
Right.
In Tina's part, I think there will be like a lot about contracts and details. So it might be super interesting to stay on. But the first part is about history of closeting in the music industry and entertainment industry. And it's done by me, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. But it's still, I'm doing that. But definitely feel free to just go with the discussion and everything. Yeah, so I think that a lot of persons or believe that closeting is not a real thing, or believe that it's something that is not happening now. And I mean, it's true that like homosexuality took a long time to be accepted on screen, and I mean the music and entertainment industry has been like homophobic and just like LGBTQA phobic for a really long time. I believe that there was like this code, which is like the motion picture production code, which basically bear the depiction of any kind of sexual perversion or deviances, which homosexuality fell under at this time. Yeah, and during the Second World War and the subsequent Cold War, Hollywood increasingly depicted gay characters as sadists, psychopaths, antisocial villains, or victims who committed crimes due to their homosexuality. I don't know if you studied cinema for a bit, but like I know that in a lot of old movies, especially, our teachers would told us that yes, a lot of those villains were depicted as homosexual. Like, I mean, it was not it was not like the main point of it, but yeah, it was like super stereotypical. So yeah, and that's after like the so 1969 Stonewall's riots in New York City, and its catapulting of the gays liberation movement that Hollywood began to look at gay people as a possible consumer, and so include them in movies, mainly through queer baiting at the time. Yeah, and then we can just say hello to Teen Wolf, Sherlock Holmes, and the list goes on. Yeah, a lot of queer baiting in those shows, even now. Yeah, and so when you think of it, like the first big roles of queer people were only made in like the 60s. So it's like 70 years ago. And I mean, Hollywood is a privileged industry, so the people who chose those cards are basically still in power now. Yeah, like a lot of people I think believe that it's not happening now, but I mean, it's still super recent. Yeah, and the Hollywood industry and just like golden age is super recent, so that's why it's still something that is happening now.
Yeah, and it's not only just like films and movies and stuff as well. It's with a lot of like literature as well, because I'm very big on reading, and like I've got quite a lot of old queer books written in the early 20th century or even the 19th century, and a lot of those books were actually not allowed to be published until not even 10 years ago because of how like hidden from the public they were, because obviously of their homosexual undertones, which a lot of people just didn't think were appropriate for people to be reading and consuming. And a lot of those books, honestly, I think are some of the best like pieces of writing I've ever read. So there's a book called Maurice, written by E.M. Forster, which is actually what My Policeman is based off. It's based off E.M. Forster's love story with his partner, and that book wasn't publicized, I think, till 40 years ago, and it was written really early in the 20th century. But it's the thing, like, when it comes to sort of books with LGBTQ sort of themes in them, they don't want them publicized because they're not appropriate. Obviously, now it's different, like with the world being slightly more inclusive, but it's almost shocking how long it takes for things that are natural to be normalized. Like, if you think about it, sort of homosexuality was a normal thing back in the Greek and Roman time. Like, you were seen as superior if you were a man who dated men or were like committed sort of sexual acts with men, and then for some reason it was criminalized and like it made illegal during sort of 16th, 17th, 18th and 19th century, and only recently has it become sort of normalized. And I just think it's ridiculous, really, how long it's taken.
Yep.
No,
Couldn't agree more.
really. Really. It kind of helps me to jump into my next point, which is tab hunter. So in the Hollywood industry, like the old studio system, so basically closeting in the music industry, was also called the tab hunter situation, which was a really famous actor in the 50s in the Hollywood industry during the golden age. And he was closeted. He came out publicly in 2005. Yep. And I mean, so he came out like in a book also, and he said that it was just like impossible for him to come out as a gay actor, especially because he was also, really famous and really handsome. So yeah, just Hollywood was using his image. It's yeah, like the Hollywood is still pretty recent industry, and it's terrible.
Yeah. I think Tab Hunter, it was a movie, right, too? Like
Yeah, he did a
Tab
movie.
Hunter, it's like about like his closeting, I think. I don't know
Yep,
enough about it, so I'm not
definitely.
going to pretend like I do, but it's I will join it because I know we're saying that like the history of it and we've come so far, but then like we haven't actually even came that far yet. I mean, you can still see in shows even like Glee and like shows that like are trying to be inclusive with like queer characters, like they're still like that's their whole persona. And I think like we're just now starting to see like I just watched The Umbrella Academy and like they dealt with Elliot Page coming out as trans in a very like I thought it was like an eloquent way to do it, but it's one of the first times that I've seen that they like don't make a big deal out of something. And I think like it's we're still very far away from it not being a huge thing in the industry. So
Exactly. Because like talking about Glee, I honestly that show I've been watching it for years,
yeah.
and like just the whole theme like of that show. I mean, it was a school choir and they sang musical theatre shows. Like it couldn't be
Right.
any better than that.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that was like that for me was like the first time I'd seen the sort of like. I mean, it was quite stereotypical for it being obviously filmed in 2009, but just like seeing that televised was sort of the first time I'd seen it like normalized in television. Obviously, again with the high school stereotypes probably didn't help with that, and like the whole like Kurt's character itself was a bit too much for me. But like just the representation in general I think was amazing, and like you said with more recent shows, like especially with Stranger Things, seeing the struggle of like Will and his sexuality on screen is something I think a lot of people can like empathize with. And again, like link, because it's obviously based in the 80s, like it really does show the sort of like prejudice and how like you're constantly mentally battling with yourself to sort of be like, I don't want to really be this way because it wasn't considered normal. Like if you were gay, you weren't right back then. And obviously, like as you mentioned with Umbrella Academy, like the way they introduced Elliot Page's character, it was just, and the fact that everyone was accepting of it as well in the show and in real life, it just shows how far we've come. But there's still a long way to come until we're finally, you know, at the finish line, especially with Roe v. Wade being overturned and then them wanting to obviously outlaw queer marriage as well, which doesn't help the case whatsoever.
It really does not.
Yeah, as someone who grew up in Florida, I appreciate you guys' initial statement because it's hit very close to home recently, and everything's going backwards over here. So I might be coming to live with you guys soon.
Okay.
Come.
This room is fine.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, no, but that's so true actually about like movies and series that are, you know, only talking about the fact that like about gay characters because they're gay. Like, I mean, not talking about them because they're gay, but like, yeah, their only persona is around the fact to be gay. Yeah, like I can just remember a lot of series, you know, like on Netflix or anything. I'm just like, you know, like you're a bit frustrated because like especially when you want to like empathize with the character because you know you feel close to the the person because you know I mean you have the same struggles or you have like the same orientation or I don't know, but yeah, it's just so frustrating sometimes because you cannot empathize with them because like I mean there's nothing to empathize with except their sexual orientation. I mean it's basically the only thing you talk about, and I mean of course it's important to have some movies about this subject, but all of the last movies that were like just really liked by the audience and that got prizes and just awards and everything were like movies that were really hard about gay persons, but it's never about gay persons being happy. And I think this is also why, you know, Heartstoppers worked so well because it was like a cute, you know, romance. And yeah, I think this is what a lot of people needed and never got in their childhood.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like coming from someone who lives in England, and has seen sort of homophobia in secondary schools. I mean, the Heartstopper. I started reading Heartstopper comics back in like sort of the end of 2020, and was really excited for the series to come out. And like, yes, the series did show a lot of representation, and it was like fairly accurate to how sort of queer people in British secondary schools are treated. I mean, I didn't really like this series because I just think the acting was a bit naff, but like that's my own opinion and I won't force that on anyone else. But I just think like it definitely was sort of more of a broader like representation for the queer community because like that's the thing like you were saying with sort of TV shows with gay characters, they never really show the struggle that they have to go through for self acceptance and acceptance of those around. They only show the Yas Queen Slay side of like mainly just gay men, and it's kind of cringe sometimes because you're like, that's not how all gay men act. Stop.
It's
But I mean, like most of the shows with that in like were obviously made like pre 2010s era, but I think like that, do you know that Netflix show Q Force that was released like last year, and it was like an animated series full of like just gay men. That really didn't help because that was just again just the whole Yas Queen Slay side of gay men, and it was just made into a animated series, and I was just like, what the actual hell is this? Like, what are you doing?
I don't know the series, but yeah, definitely agree with everything you said, I think. And talking about series, my last point was actually about mini series on Netflix. Yeah, I just like wanted to give the example of Hollywood, which is like yeah, mini series that was released on Netflix maybe like 1 year, 2 years ago. I don't know. It was released some times ago. Anyways, um, yeah, I think that it's like a really interesting miniseries that is also just like depicting I think the Hollywood industry, and I mean it was done by Netflix, so it's not like you could say, you know, it's something that people fantasize over their head, because I mean it's also supposed to be accurate. Um, so yeah, the whole series is just exploring Hollywood just after the Second World War, where traditional power dynamics in the American film industry are systematically dismantled, and racism and homophobia are assigned as a dustbin in history, just like Wikipedia said, which for once is pretty well explained, I think. Yeah, and in this miniseries, you can follow two main characters, which are closeted. Rock Hudson, which is actually a real person, one of the most famous actors of the Golden Age. Yeah, and it was pretty known in the industry that he was gay, but he was absolutely not outside of the closet at the time. Out, just. And also, there's another main character which is closeted, which is Richard Samuel, which is inside of the series, a studio executive of a studio. Yeah, but like I just think it's like a really good mini series that is yeah, if you're like interested about the subject, you can just like jump in and watch a few episodes, and I think it will just show you a bit how the industry works. And also I was super shocked when I watched it of how did they chose to change Rock Hudson's image. Like they changed his name, they changed who he was entirely from beginning till end. And yeah, I think it's also important to see it from this perspective. Like in a movie, maybe it will make more sense than just reading about it. So yeah, little recommendation if you have nothing to um see right now. Yep.
Yeah, like about sort of closeting in the Hollywood industry, there's actually a really good book that sort of talks about that. I don't know if anyone's read it. It's called the I think it's the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and it's about sort of
It's
this.
really good.
I think she was Hispanic. I cannot remember. I read the book like 2 years ago. No, not even that. Like last year. And basically, it was about how she changed her whole identity and sort of married 7 men, and then on the side, she was also dating a woman who I think she works with on one of the, again, I read this book ages ago, so I've probably not got the best memory on it, but it was heartbreaking, and I think I cried for about 4 days after reading it. But yeah, it did sort of show sort of like the closeting and stuff of queer people in the Hollywood industry, and I think that if obviously you haven't read it, you should definitely read it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love little recommendations about this. And yeah, we just talked a bit with Tina about it. I think that after this live, we'll probably do like a big thread of all the different books recommendations or like articles that we used if you want to know more, because like it's really deep subject. We're not like gonna lie for, I mean, for 24 hours on it, and I mean we could even go further in the discussion. Yeah, so yeah, if then you're super interested and you really want to know more about the subject, definitely feel free to do so. Should we do a little break? Do you have anything to
Sure.
add, guys? To
No, I was gonna say I do have a lot of threads and stuff bookmarked just for myself, so I'll share that with a bunch of people or with everyone. Whoever wants to read them, I'll share it all. So
Love that. Absolutely amazing. Yep. Do you have anything to add maybe on what I said? Or does anyone in the live has some, I don't know, some questions or thoughts to add to the discussion? Tina, do you want to add something?
no, I think we went. There's just so much to talk about on all of this, and I think
It's true.
there's so much to cover. So we could talk forever on
We
everything,
could.
probably.
We could. And that's terrible.
Right, exactly. It's not a happy thing that we can talk so much, but it's, I mean, it's interesting and it's good we are.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to just bring awareness on those subjects, even if, as we talked about, it can be a bit, I think, hard and, just heavy subject.
Right.
But that is also for, a reason. It's not only heavy for us, but it's also heavy for the people who are closeted. That's why we're doing this.
Right.
Speaking of whoever about the Netflix series about Hollywood, Darren Criss, he was in Glee. He played, I cannot remember. Yeah, and he did actually state in a few articles, like literally about 2-3 years ago, that he wouldn't no longer play like queer characters in shows because he couldn't feel like he could add like the authenticity into those roles as other queer actors and actresses could, because that's another thing, is a lot of shows will cast non-queer actors as their main actors and actresses because they want, like, the more famous the person, the more money it brings in, so they end up casting like straight heterosexual people to play those roles, which again is sort of not showing the representation of the community that it should be for a show that is mainly queer based.
Yeah, and it's also, for lack of better terms, it's also a little hypocritical when we're talking about closeting in the Hollywood industry, but then yet there's not a lot of exposure for queer actors, but a lot of queer actors aren't allowed to be openly queer. So it's like this big circle of, if they were allowed to be, or if it was more acceptable to be openly queer, and if they could get the same amount of roles as they could, portraying themselves as straight or appealing to the general public, they might be able to get better roles in that situation, but then they're a straight person playing a queer character. So like, it's this ongoing thing that just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and that's the thing I'm really excited for about My Policeman, is that all like the three main roles are played by queer actors.
Yes.
Whether they've stated their sexuality or not, it doesn't matter, but the fact that they have brought in that inclusivity to a film where it is obviously queer based, I did find sort of very like well played on their part.
Yeah, and the fact that they're openly talking about it, I think, is a game changer. That whole movie is going to be a game changer. So
I know,
we're all
I'm
ready.
gonna cry throughout the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yes,
100%. Sam, did you want to jump in and say something?
Hi.
Hi, it's Sam. For if people don't
Yeah.
know, it's another of our podcasters.
I'm one of the admins, but I have to come in late. And I have to leave soon because I'm busy. But I just wanted to say, like, what Tina said, like, to add on to what Tina said. Like, to me, it seems like they're honestly only using the queer community, like, to their advantage, or not to their advantage, but like when they want to, so like it's only okay for certain people to like be gay when they say so, like,
Yeah.
and it's just, I feel like it's so, like you said, hypocritical. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we support the community, whatever, but then when they actually want to be themselves, when it's not a part of like a show or whatever, they're not allowed to, which, like, to me, like, but doesn't add up.
Exactly. They only support gay people when it suits them, when it brings them money, when it brings them fame, when it brings them popularity. It's only for when they see fit, and then as soon as it doesn't bring the hype that they want, they cast it aside, and then something comes out about them saying one thing or another, and then blah 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 blah, and it's all just a big disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to, I mean, Pride Month, when you see every company out there. I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but it's very much related. When you see every company start having rainbows, and it's great to be supported, but then like today's July 2nd, and so like now all of a sudden it's all gone. You know, so it's kind of, it's used whenever it can make them money, or it can be used for marketing. And
Precisely,
so we have,
like if you really cared about the community, then speak out on the injustices. Sign petitions, donate money to charities. Don't
mm-hmm.
change your profile photo and then say we support all gay people and then say nothing else about it.
Yeah.
Right. Or change your profile picture, but then keep it for the rest of the year. You know, like do more than just, you know, for that 1 month. But that is a tangent that I could also ramble on forever. But it's still very relevant. It's still homophobia and closeting in the industry, because it's such a norm that it's not as accepted still. So that's a barrier that has to be broken.
Precisely, and it's not just sort of like the LGBTQ community they're profiting off either. Do you remember, like, throughout last year's sort of like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, where for 5 minutes everyone talks about it, and then as soon as it didn't suit their company's image, or it didn't profit, they didn't profit off it anymore, everyone just stopped talking about it.
Yeah, oh my god, that is so true. And I think just about also just what you said in general, like I think the capitalization of just LGBTQ plus people is so incredibly harmful to the community, because it makes them just appear as a kind of like trend that is going on. Or yeah, that's also why I think a lot of people believe that you know, like LGBTQ plus people are just like influenced by others or anything. I think it's mainly also because of brands are using it just for 1 month and then never talking about it. And just like you said, Aries, yeah, just as you said, you know, they should do more. Like, yeah, just give money if you really care about it. Like you're multinationals. You can do things about it, but you just chose not to. You're just choosing it for like a marketing image and then letting it go.
It's like, it's queer baiting, honestly, at this point. Like,
it is,
because it's so performative. Like, they're doing stuff and saying stuff, but only for a limited amount of time, and then after like June, like that's it. Like, we don't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's not making them money anymore. And that's ultimately, like, the end of the day, it's a money making industry, and that's what they care about.
Yeah.
But when it does make them money, then they're all for it. So, and that's a lot to do with, you know, if I talk about contracts later, it's the same thing. It's all a business. And until that machine and business is broken, like, they're way too powerful to kind of change it.
Right.
But that's why we're talking about it, because hopefully we can make a change. So,
yeah. The Lara
wait.
Weekly, changing the world.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, can I add something?
Of course.
Wait. Okay, I don't know if y'all talked about this before, but I just want to say, like, I feel like we're also, now that we're more aware of like closeting and stuff, I feel like you know, because of that, there's more like queer shows and like movies. And I mean, I don't want to say there's a lot, like there's so, like, it's only a few right now, but the impact that queer shows have now is so much more, I feel like, than they used to. Like Heartstopper, for example, like that's so big now, and I feel like that's so big. I mean, like, that's like really important to the community, because a show about, you know, like gay people being that big and like getting that many like viewers and stuff is like, it makes people more accepting of us, I feel like, because I've seen stories of like homophobic parents and stuff like not being homophobic anymore because they have this visual representation of what it's actually like, as opposed to what, these like half-assed brands making it seem like, because like we said, they only talk about it for a month and then it's like they don't exist anymore. So when there's a show that like shows the full, like, I don't want to say the full story, but like, it just shows a glimpse of like what it's like, then it helps people be more accepting of us. And then it also helps, these money chasing freaking managers see like, oh, other people are gay, like they actually exist. Let's not be assholes.
That is the big problem though, is that like the bigger things become, like the more companies and like production teams finds they can make money off it. And I think that it like sorry, pardon me, it comes with its flaws really, because yes, we want representation, but there is also a going overboard with it again, like with the whole stereotypes, and then obviously misinterpretations of what queer people are actually like. And I think that's the problem, because like as much as I love seeing people be able to like be who they are freely and stuff, there are people who take advantage of that for their own benefit, which then puts shame on us more than it does them most of the time, because of the misinterpretation.
It's like half-assed representation.
Definitely true. And I talked about Heartstopper a bit before. And I was like, oh, Sam is definitely going to be interested about that. And you jumped in right after, so I think you were cold.
Yeah. Yeah, I joined on my Heartstopper account first, and then I was like, oh wait, wrong fandom. And then I switched.
Great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But here I am.
I love that.
The next part that we wanted to talk about was, and I guess we've spoken a little bit about it already, but how exactly it relates to the boys, and obviously, as Tina mentioned before, the contracts and that it honestly really does play a big role in all of it. Is the contracts that they have to sign, the management that Harry is still under. Like we have in the Howard Stern interview where he asks Harry if he could imagine still being under the same toxic management, and Harry's only response is that he still is. And I think that says a lot about them still being unable to actually come out and, like we mentioned before, being in those glass closets, because we can see it, he's just legally not allowed to say it, which again then factors into the way that he helps fans come out at concerts, and just his whole persona and the way he words how he helps them come out. I think it's really really a big thing to have a look at in there, just his word and the whole freedom and falling to his knees, and that waving the flag above his head means that they're out. And how many times has he done that, and how many times has he thanked us for being that safe space. And like you said, what was it, thank you for listening, thank you for understanding, thank you for accepting, in that last speech. And that's just, I think it explains a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, that like phrase, that was big. Like I'm so proud of him, bro.
Same. The music industry, they're just not allowed to say. And
Yeah.
it's obvious in a lot of things, in interviews with other celebrities and people who have spoken out, like Rebecca Ferguson. I don't know if you guys have seen any of what she's been tweeting about them.
Yep, I love her.
She's a real one.
Yeah. Yes. Everyone should follow her if you're not.
Yes, definitely.
Wait,
And
okay, so to those who like don't know who Rebecca Ferguson is, so basically Rebecca Ferguson was a contestant on X Factor at the same time as One Direction. And I forget, she got like second or something, second place. Or first, but I don't know.
we got second, we got third.
Yeah, okay. And then sorry. And then they got like close and stuff. They became like good friends. There's like pictures of them, whatever. And she also talked about she was like signed under Psycho, like records, whatever, Simon. And so, you know, she was with the same label as One Direction, and so she knows what they went through, and so now she's trying to like sue them, I guess, or something. But she's trying to speak out on basically what Psycho did. And she's been tweeting about like how like toxic and shit that label is. And she was like, there won't be any like what was it? No more like confusing people's sexualities or something. And like no more oh fuck. But it was like basically like a bunch of tweets about their toxic behavior as a label, and especially with like younger artists. And yeah, and she's like pretty much, I want to say, not the only person, but the most vocal person talking about what Simon and the record label did. And she's been like talking about stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really,
Yeah.
really famous. I really like her. We got another request that I accepted, and I just wanted to say one last thing. Like the last tweet that I shared, I don't know if that was what you were looking for, Britt, but I think it is like a really good tweet for what we talked about, like just the fact that you know, Harry is not only close to the LGBTQ plus community. I think that yeah, we can just all agree that he is a part of it. And yeah, this last week, just like from Louis at home 28 is really interesting. Like Harry made a speech because he isn't in the lie. He is a part of the community which the attacks were targeted on. He felt the pain. He has experienced the homophobia. And if you guys won't realize you are a part of the problem,
100%.
Cass, do you maybe want to say something? Because I just accepted your.
Hey,
Hi.
yeah. Hi.
Hi.
I was just gonna add one little thing about Rebecca Ferguson, because one thing that I really like about her is the fact that when Harry was dating Caroline Flack, she was one of the people that came out and spoke up about it and said that she didn't think it was right. Like,
Yeah.
she's always been down from the get-go.
Yeah, because it's not. It's like Harry was like a child, bro.
Yeah. And I think like her being close to them and speaking out about it just says a lot to the situation.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you for adding.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like, because you're so right. And it's different when it's someone that was like actually friends with him. Like, it's not like a clout chasing person or like, because we see that a lot, honestly. Like, I call it Larry baiting, but like, we see that so much with brands and like people trying to bring Louis and Harry into everything because they know we're gonna chase after whatever they said, and they just use their names to their advantage.
Oh my god. So, thank you for talking about it because
My,
like
but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, like yeah, I think it's so true. I don't know if you can hear me well, by the way. I've just put
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
headphones out. Perfect. Um yeah, I still can't remember what we were talking about. Okay, my memory is absolutely terrible.
I just added a tweet of Rebecca
Ferguson.
and with HL Daily. If anyone wants to go check that out for when I don't know if you guys remember, but when her song, the music video for the song ended up on the One Direction channel on YouTube.
I cannot remember
Yeah,
that
I
actually.
remember that. And it had like lyrics to a different song. It was very suspect. And then she was like talking about how
Yeah.
she doesn't know how it got there. Like, it was very interesting. And I also, just speaking on Rebecca Ferguson, because their contracts are almost probably going to be the same. Of course, like Louis and Harry in One Direction, I'm sure went on to sign like more contracts and renegotiations because they went on to be, huge. But they were on the X Factor the same exact year as Rebecca Ferguson. And she talks about it being, trying to, I don't know if she signed a 20-year contract or they tried to get her to sign a 20-year contract, but just the stuff that she's came out with, and hers, she tried to get out of it at the very beginning. That there's so much that's wrapped up into theirs. So, and I mean, I was going to speak on that later, but just since we were on the Rebecca Ferguson part, like, it's like once you sign one contract, it just snowballs after that. So like one turns into another and you can't talk about the first one. And then once you sign the second one, and that's why when people say that, like, they're not under the same management anymore and they're not under the same label and they're not in their contracts anymore, we don't know that. And we don't know how long they are. And there's probably a lot of stuff that they're never going to be able to talk about from stuff that they signed when they were like 16, 17 years old. So it's just like, it's a messy situation, but I'm glad that she's coming out to talk about it because it sheds some light on what they went through, at least at the very beginning. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think she's super great. And another person talking about it is also Cheryl Lloyd. I know that she talked about it a bit. I mean, she was on was she on the same show as
the same year.
um
Actually.
Oh.
I guess and she was signed to Psycho. So she's exactly the same as well.
Yeah, and she, like, I know that she did a bit of also of TikToks on the subject, just like music kind of like shading the industry and just talking about the fact that they were basically asking her to go around and just make promos of her with another guy that was already famous so that she could be more famous. Basically, well, I mean, just bearding,
Yeah, and she was married, I believe, and they still wanted her to like be in a relationship with someone else, which is crazy.
She was married, and that's why I think she also talked about it a bit. So yeah, I think that's also super interesting. About what you said, Cass, about like I cannot remember the name of the person who dated Harry who talked about it.
Caroline Flack.
Caroline Flack. Yep. And it just also makes me think of Danielle, like Louis' friend that was dating him at some point. And yeah, Danielle also talked about the music industry and the fact that she just wanted to stop, and at the beginning she just wanted to help Louis, but then she realized that like how far it was gonna go, and so yeah, that's why she decided to stop about it. Obviously she couldn't talk about everything, but yeah, like she definitely talked about the fact that there was money included and just like contracts and everything, and just all of this heaviness around it that was just making her going crazy, basically.
Are you referring to Danielle Campbell?
Yeah.
See, I saw somebody post recently and say that she said she spoke out about like dating Louis or whatever, and I feel like I remember it, but I'm also like I'm not able to find it, so I wasn't sure if that she really did. Or...
No one can find it.
Yes.
But we all remember it, which is the crazy part. So like it happened, unless we all like had a stroke at the same time. But
no, I mean I feel like I've seen it too. But I've questioned my own sanity now because I can't find it.
And I do think Danielle is interesting because I know, and I'm gonna say allegedly how I know this, but there are times when two celebrities may get signed into a PR stunt contract, whether it's bearding or not, and actually choose who they want their other person to be. And they kind of, it's a compromise. Like they're like, hey, you have to do this. Like this is for your image. This is for whatever it's for. But we're going to let you, decide like who you want it to be with within reason. Louis not going to be like, oh, I want it to be Harry. Like it has to be for serving whatever purpose they want. But I do think that's probably what that situation was. Like he picked a friend or someone he trusted, and she was like, wait, this is way more deep and probably like went a little too dark for what she signed on for, but I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Or like Daniel's situation apparently happened. I mean, through the research of a lot of persons, what happened was that Louis started dating Daniel just after Brianna. So because the original idea, I think, was that Louis, after he had like this baby with Brianna, we're not gonna talk about it, but yeah, um was supposed to stay with her, but he really didn't wanted that, so he asked Daniel if they could date for a bit so that he wouldn't have to stay with her. So I mean, it would make sense with like the compromise part, because I mean, the management already asked him a lot, so yeah, it could have been a kind of compromise. And yeah, a lot of person I know really love Daniel, like a lot of Larrys really love Daniel, because yeah, they think that she's a great person and just try to help him as much as she could.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The same with, was it Tamara, who he like took to Glastonbury? I know that's a sensitive subject, but he took her to Glastonbury to also try to like sway the Brianna rumors. So I think he probably did that, and then this is all a theory. I shouldn't go into theories, but this is all, you know, he could have did that to kind of set that off, and then they let him, you know, kind of choose. There's a lot of probably going back and forth for all these things. So but
definitely.
If you're for whatever reason an anti, and if you have any questions, please ask, because they'll answer.
Yes.
Like, don't be shy. Yeah, I'm gonna go.
You're looking for troubles.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Sam.
bye. Yeah, and I will answer any questions, like to anti-solos, people who just have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah,
As long as
definitely.
people come with like an open mind, you can completely disagree with every single thing I say, but like, you know, I like having conversations with people and kind of discussing like hard topics. So if people have questions, go for it.
Exactly. Which is that was a very big thing, I think for all of us about making this podcast, was to be able to have the ability to actually have a civil conversation and explain things that they might not know, or that they might want to learn to understand, you know, more, or why we view everything how we view it. So honestly, if you do have any questions, please ask.
Yep, definitely. And that's right, and that's how I explained it to um a lot of people. It's just like, yeah, even if you don't know anything about Larry, yeah, our podcast is supposed to be like pretty understanding for everyone. So yeah, understandable, probably. Yep. Um. So yeah, definitely ask questions if you have some. And otherwise, Britt, feel free to go on if you have anything you want to continue talking about.
I think I kind of sped through everything because I was nervous.
Oh, that's great.
That's fair.
And I mean, Tina's is a big part, so
Yeah, but I just wanted to say one thing. Yeah, so Tina said that we would like answer every question, and that is so true. And actually, one of our ideas, I don't know if I should reveal it or not, but I mean, like, we're kind of in a safe place. I can always edit it so that it just like stays between us, and then just release it to the public. No, but like one of our ideas at the beginning of the podcast was to do an episode which would be like a discussion with an antis,
yeah,
with an anti, which I think is like such an interesting topic, and just like such an interesting way of talking about Larry, and just like, you know, really, I think dismantling and just, you know, going super deep on a subject, and just yeah, kind of also thinking from an timeline, because I think that for a lot of us, maybe that now that we know about it since quite a long time, we yeah, it maybe is kind of obvious to us, but it is certainly not to a lot of people. So yeah, if you're an anti and you want to be a part of the podcast, feel free to fill the form. It's gonna be a difficult one because, like, I mean, obviously it would have to be an anti that is not like insulting us or anything. But yeah, that could be a great idea, isn't it?
But we encourage you to fill it out because we really want to be able to have this conversation for to life.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's finding the right. It'll be interesting for other people to hear that too. Like, I know I'm the type of person that I'm skeptical about everything I see, even though I wholeheartedly believe it all. I always have to like second guess myself every single day because I think it just keeps you
Me
kind of
too.
grounded because we're so in it that it's hard. We have to like make sure that we're taking it all in. So I think it's always good to kind of have those conversations as long as
Exactly.
it stays civil. Otherwise, I just block you. So I'm putting that out there too. I will. So
Yep.
No, just on that being the whole skeptical side of things is something that we all mentioned when we were introducing ourselves in that I don't know about everyone else here, but I will look at something and I will try and find another reason for it before I jump straight in and go
yeah,
100% what that is because of everything that happens with it. And obviously, like you said, the whole skeptical side of things is that obviously we want to be sure we're not just going to go in and say something if we're not 100% confident on it. In that we have looked, like I don't just jump in and look at something and that's my immediate thought. In that you look at something and you make sure that there is the things that can't be explained in any other reason, you know?
right, right. And I think you can have like get excited about something right away. And I think that's
Yeah,
different than like just fully believing it right away. And
exactly.
it's two people's lives that we're talking about. So it's like,
Hmm.
you know, we're not trying to have fun, but it can be like a hard thing that they're going through that like we all see every day. So it is kind of, I hate using the word fun, but it's kind of exciting to like have this like fandom and group of people who do understand you and you can get excited about things. So I think there's a difference between like getting excited and then just like stating something as a fact like right away. So it's a it's a balance.
Exactly.
True. And I join you on the skeptical part. Also, yeah, I think like it might be too skeptical on things, but at the same time, I think it's good because, as you said, like just in it, I think every minute. Well, I mean, I'm obviously also completely obsessed with Twitter, but I mean, like, yeah, when you just get so much content from Harry and Louis every day, especially now that they're on tour. Obviously, there will be rumors that will not be true, or thoughts that maybe will go a bit too out of the way. But so yeah, I think it's definitely important to just know it, um, and yeah, be skeptical is actually a good thing. I think. I mean, for me.
Yeah, I agree.
100. Yeah.
I'm fully a skeptic. Probably to a fault in all life. I meant that in terms of the entire world.
Hmm.
Yep.
So,
Same.
yeah,
My God.
I've seen too much to not be a skeptic. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's why we also know that we can trust you, I think. It's like, I mean, you're a love person. Just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's, yeah, skeptical persons, like you can just trust them because you know that they really, thought of it and just like kind of turned the problem in all of the different angles before choosing to believe the fact.
Right. It's almost like having an open mind. Like it's almost on the same sort of page as that. Like if you have an open mind, you're also looking at all different sides. And I think that's why I've loved like almost everyone that I've met who like is a Larry is because like they do, like most people have like a very open mind to stuff outside of it as well, because I feel like it takes that to kind of know what's going on and to kind of see it. And so then you kind of just, you take that into like your daily life. So I went off on like a Larry loving tangent, but it's true. Like it's very like open-minded loving people. So there you go. There's my Larry. I said I was a Larry stan earlier somewhere today on Twitter, and I am. And I meant that as IE stan. A stan of all of you guys. So sorry, did my ramble break us?
There's a lot.
No, it's good. It's good.
No, exactly. It's 100% what we're here for.
Yeah, I think that Tina, now we can hear the interesting part and just hear you
Cool.
ramble even more on this about how does closeting work and contracts work, because I think that's really interesting subject that a lot of people
and
maybe don't know a lot about.
And I feel like we've hit on a few things, so I'll try not. I could talk about this for hours. Like I said, if anyone has any like questions, feel free to ask at any point. But and this is just kind of a disclaimer too about contracts. Like we don't have any idea what's actually in Harry and Louis' contract or One Direction, but there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of contracts that are very similar to theirs. I write contracts every day in my job. It's a different type of contract, but it is something that I'm used to seeing. And there's a lot of people in this fandom who are lawyers and like, and work in all different types of fields. And so it's kind of just like a culmination of like a bunch of research in the area that we can kind of come to guess. I don't want to say guess, but we can kind of have an idea of probably like what they have had in their contracts. But in terms of how closeting works with contracts, one of the biggest things I see get asked anytime closeting is brought up in a contract is that it's illegal, or like you can't do that, and they're like, you can't closet someone with a contract. And like that is kind of true. Like it's not going to say like, okay, Harry Styles, you can't say you're in the closet. Like you can't say you're gay. Like that's not what it's going to say in the contract. And we mentioned this earlier about image clauses, and that's how they work in the closeting part into the contract, is they work it into an image clause. So they have like a marketing team or a PR team in charge of their entire image, and they're in complete control of these images. So once you sign that, they can have control of what is written in magazines for you. They have control of how the public views you, articles that are printed, interviews that you do, things you can say. And it's not complete control. It's not like they don't have, like they're just puppets, even though I did say I was a big NSYNC fan and they literally made themselves puppets at one point. So it does happen, but it's more, you can't break that image that they put there for you. And there's morality clauses, which is kind of what we talked about a little bit with Harry's Better Homes and Gardens interview, when he talked about the cleanliness clause and how he was scared to break it and scared to say things in interviews. With the morality clause, if you break it, whoever wrote that contract for you can essentially term your contract, take back everything maybe that they paid you. If you had any sort of like record labels under your name, or not record labels, records under your name, songs, like they could essentially take all that back and own it. Plus you could also owe money. You could be like charged later in the future. So there's just like a lot of risk with breaking that contract. And I think you'll find like a lot of musicians, if you look in interviews and things, or not even musicians, anybody in entertainment, will talk about how they were scared that it was going to ruin someone else that they were working with. So I mentioned Lance Bass again. He mentioned in an interview that he thought if he came out of the closet, he was going to, like, NSYNC was going to go down the drain. Like, he was going to ruin it for the rest of the band. And that's essentially what Harry was saying in Better Homes and Gardens. Like, there's a bigger group there that he's there with. So like if he is to say something wrong and he essentially breaks that image clause that he's in, he breaks his image, he could break their contract, which would ruin all of their everything that they've done as One Direction. You know, we don't know the exact terms of it, so it's hard to speak on it, but there is the kind of that fear there. And with like the image clauses, it's also where they're like Harry was said to be, you know, dating older women and dating around, and he doesn't necessarily have to agree with that. He doesn't have to say he's in those relationships. I mean, I think most of us, if you don't know, like Harry's never actually admitted to any of these people being his girlfriends. I think he called Camille his ex-girlfriend once. So it's not that they have to necessarily agree with everything that's said, but they can't say something that completely goes against that image that's portrayed of them. So that's where like plausible deniability comes in. That's where queer coding comes in. That's where they kind of push these boundaries to have a little bit more freedom, because as long as they're towing that line between this isn't going to break my image clause, but this might show the people who can see it like what I'm actually trying to do. So that's kind of like how closeting can actually work in terms of a contract. Like you just can't, they are in complete control. When I say complete control, like complete control of your image. So it's crazy, and it's a sad thing that they can do it. And I think we talked about Rebecca Ferguson. She's trying to start an organization to where musicians can't be treated like this, but I think it's a long time coming.
But yeah, like about the image and what you talked about, like cleanliness clauses, it makes me think of like, you know, all the Disney channels, you know, like Superstar from like
Yeah.
the 2000 and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think that also for those people you can just like see the cleanliness so well, you know, like, you know, in everything they were doing, the way they were, I mean, dressed, even though sometimes when you see Zendaya's outfit from
Right.
that, you're kind of like, okay, maybe you didn't have a personal stylist, but yeah, like you got me about
Right.
what I want to say. Like, yeah, I think that yeah, it's something that you can see super well in on those kind of things. Um, yeah, and so those cleanliness clauses also
Mm-hmm.
goes with like talking about politics and all of those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard, especially with, he called it a cleanliness clause. I'm used to it as like a morality clause.
Yeah.
But it's hard to judge that too, because the terms of that might not be explicitly like written out in the contract, like what you can and cannot say. So they might tell you like, you're supposed to be the good boys, you're supposed to be, you know, available to all the girls. Like Harry, maybe you're gonna get into our mom's demographic, so you're gonna be dating older women. So it's kind of, they're given this image of what they're supposed to be, and that's why it's such a hard thing. And I think that's why it's confusing for people, because they just get scared to say anything at that point. So it's like, if I say something about politics, or if I show that I'm in support of this, is that going to break my image clause? So it's like, contracts are made to be complex. Like they're made to confuse people. And I don't want to say that, but as someone who has people ask questions, it's also the person giving the contract is always going to kind of spin it in a way to make you feel like you're being taken care of and that they're doing this for you. So they're going to be like, hey, if you do this, you're going to break into more markets. If you follow these guidelines, we're going to be able to put your album out into the US. So I mean, it's a really good example with Louis in Dubai right now. Like there's laws against homosexuality in like 70 countries still, where like it's illegal in some sort. And so if you have an artist who is openly queer, it might be harder to push their albums in those countries. It might be harder to get them to be able to tour in those countries. And it's sad and it's awful, but it's just, at the end of the day, it is still a business. And so they just have to, well, they don't have to do anything, but they do. They market it to make money. And so they're looking at it as like, what markets can we get you in quicker? And so they'll tell them that, hey, like this is the image that you need to portray so we can get you into all these, you'll be in front of so many more people if you act this certain way.
Yeah.
And so that's where that
sorry. I just want to say, like, it's so manipulative because, as you said, like, they're just talking about contracts at first as something, you know, just for your own good, and then you realize that actually it's not the case. But you know, like, Harry and Louis, and I mean all of the Wendy's actually were so young at that time, that I guess you never really know what it actually means to a certain extent,
right.
especially when you never experience any kind of celebrity. So obviously, like, you're hoping that people are going to take care of you and just, like, you know, take you by the hand and just explain to you.
Right. And that was another point that I was going to make, was kind of like why people a lot of times are like, well, why sign into a contract like that? Or why are they still doing it? You know, like if they're in love, if they want to be together, like why are they still in these contracts? Which, why are they still in the contracts is a different subject. But like, why would you sign the contract in the first place? Is because this is one of the main ways, especially back in 2010, to break into something like the music industry. So as I mentioned, I was a musician in the past, and I switched out of that mainly because, like, you have to have talent, but a big part of it is luck. And a big part of it is signing with these big record labels, because you will get your music out to more people that way. And that's just how it's worked for so long. And there's such a monopoly on it. And so, like, when you have this contract in front of you, that's like, you're 16 years old and you have your dream, like, being handed to you on a paper, like, you get to go on tour and make an album with your friends, and like, we're going to pay you this money. Like, you're not going to say no, you know. And they'll have people in the room probably that went over it with them, but those people, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that their families back then didn't have enough money to bring in their own lawyers. And I think Harry even hinted at that like, he didn't know what he was signing in the Howard Stern interview. Yeah. But you also, like, the people that are brought in to help you go through the contracts are working for the people that are issuing you the contract. So they're going to answer your questions, but they're always going to kind of spin them. They want you to sign the contract. Like, so, and I sound like a bad guy if I say this, but when I have people question things in my contracts, like, I know how to, like, make them feel good about what they're signing. And at the end of the day, like, contracts do protect you as well. So, like, it can protect you from bad PR. It can protect you from, you know, getting a lot of, like, scammed, or people that are trying to, like, streaming's big now. So hopefully we can move away from the big record labels and people can go more independent. But it's a hard thing, because that's why I said it could go on for, like, hours. So I try not to just, like, because it's such a crazy, like, world once you're in it too. And that kind of goes to one of the next points that get asked a lot, from, like, anti-soloist people who don't know. They're always just like, well, they're free now. Like, they're not under the same contracts. Like, they're 30 years old. Like, I get that all the time. Like, they're 30 years old. They're adults. They're free men. Like, they're not with Psycho anymore. And especially with a contract coming from a show like X Factor and these talent shows, a lot of these terms in these contracts, first of all, we don't know how long their contract is. It could be 20 years, like Rebecca said, but God, I hope not. But it could be 5 years, 5 albums. It could be, we don't know how long their contract really was for. But a lot of the terms in these contracts, even once the contract ends, it's called what's in perpetuity. And it's basically, it lasts forever. So there's certain terms in these contracts that even once the contract is done, you can't talk about those things. So we may never know what's in these contracts, and they may never be able to talk about. That's a big part of why they can't just, like, come out of the closet. It's because they're still tied to these things they signed 10, 12 years ago. Like, there's still ties to these. And who knows when, or I mean, hopefully it's soon, but I don't think we really will ever know the full extent of anything that happened. So it's crazy.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And it's in all of the universe. So a lot of these terms, even if they went to Mars, they still can't talk about it. So, like, the terms that are used in contracts are also so binding and so scary if you try to break it. I think it was JoJo, not JoJo Siwa, who, that's another person who came out of the closet and then did not have she like wasn't invited to the Kids Choice Award and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's like a whole other thing. But JoJo, the other JoJo, was in a battle with her contract or her record label for 10 years. And they told her to try to find another job because she was never going to be able to get out of this contract. And so she was locked up for like 10, not locked up, but she was locked in the contract for 10 years, like couldn't release music. She went on hiatus and for 10 years, no new songs. She didn't own her voice and she won. So, I mean, it's great for her. But like Prince had a battle with his record label. He didn't win. So he just like shoved a bunch of music out towards the end. George Michael went to battle with Sony. He also didn't win his case. So like, it's really hard to break these contracts, and a lot of times it's not worth it because the amount of money that you're going to put out and the amount of time that you're going to spend, and you could never be able to make music. And you can tell with Louis and Harry that like music is their passion. So like for them to not be able to make music, it's probably not worth the risk to get out of the contracts. So unless they plan on taking the music industry down, which I am all there for. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, what I wanted to say was that, first of all, yeah, music is definitely their passion. I don't think it's worth the risk. I mean, for them. And also because it's pretty much the only thing they have experienced is being closeted. So I think, and that's sad to say, but I think they kind of got used to it. I mean, they know how it's working and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a very, very, very sad truth.
I think that everyone really wants them to be free. And they also do. But it's true that like we never know what might happen if they just speak out,
Right.
or just do anything. So yep. And that's true also that, like Sony's is such a big company.
Huge.
I mean, like, yeah, like big is not even the word to describe it. Yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely like horrendously just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's such a big part of the music industry and just like in general, like in the entertainment industry, like it's such a big part that even like an artist like Harry Styles, and I think that a lot of person believe that, like Harry Styles, because he's Harry Styles, can break everything, like he can just talk and it's just gonna go away. But actually even him, he cannot bring them down. Like no one could.
I think it could happen, but I think it's going to take a lot of people. And I honestly kind of think there are a lot of people who are working on it behind the scenes. Like I fully believe that. I think with just the amount of musicians that have came out and started speaking a little bit more candidly, like it could happen. It would have to be big. Like it would have to be like multiple people. Yeah, Harry on his own, he could try and he could make a big dent in it, but then at what extent for him, like, and why is it on their shoulders to kind of do that, so it's
definitely, but agree on the fact
yeah.
that a lot of people are working on it behind the scene.
Lady Gaga, when she liked the tweet about Harry and Jeff Azoff, that was super
Huge.
loud to me, super big. I mean, if Lady Gaga spoke up about it, I mean, I'm not trying to rank the celebrities, but it's Lady Gaga. It's kind of like if Beyonce came out and said something, and Harry's getting to that tier as well. Like he's clearly like he just moved up to stadiums. So I think what you said, Tina, is true. Like it's possible, but it's kind of like Britney Spears,
Yeah,
she's
I was going to talk about her. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's made her mark, but at what cost?
Yeah, her life,
Yeah.
and it's like, what, at the end of the day, like, they're still humans. So it's like, if
Yeah.
he wants to go off and live his life and have a family, this might not, I don't
Yeah.
know, it's hard. So,
And I think when you said that they get comfortable, I think I think Louis has exhibited that a lot. Um, Especially just bringing Eleanor back. I think like during the Danielle and the Tamara, like that time maybe he kind of was fighting it, but now I think him kind of like getting comfortable with music and finding his like lane in that, and just all of it, it's kind of the same as Harry, like like you said, that music is their passion, but
mm-hmm.
if he can bring Eleanor back and be comfortable with the stunt, I guess that's kind of like the price they have to pay, sadly.
Right. And that's something that you've seen a lot with like closeted musicians in the past, and the reason that they don't come out usually until like they're in their 40s or later or much later is because when they're at the height of their career, it's usually not worth it, or they're just not allowed, or they'd lose their career, or they would go bankrupt. They usually wait until their career has died down. They wait until their contracts are done. They wait until they don't have everything on the line,
Yeah.
and then they can come out. I don't want to say easier. It's never easy, but like, it's a little more, they don't have as much that they're losing if they lose like their entire fan base and their record contracts and all of this. So, but with because you mentioned Eleanor coming back, I do think they're kind of working on a longer term plan. Like, I think
Yeah.
we'll know after like their tours are done, because going back to kind of contracts and terms that are in contracts, there are oftentimes other requirements that are in there. So it's not just like a length of time, but it's like, they have to have 3 albums and 3 tours or make a certain amount of money. And usually they make money from the tours. And Walls was still under Psycho. So like, he hadn't toured that yet. So if that is part of his contract, was to tour it, obviously we don't know, but like if part of his contract was to tour that album, that might be why his second album hasn't came out. Like they might be waiting for that. Harry, that might be why he's doing all of his residencies, is just to kind of, that's what Prince did. Prince pushed out a bunch of music and, got out of his contract. I don't know if that's what it is. We won't know until all of this is done, but it could also be that like they're working behind the scenes slowly, like for a plan. So,
Yeah.
or it could be that they're enjoying their private life and they've just kind of came to terms with like, we're going to do our music on one side and have our private lives on the other, which, I'm sure we would all love to see them have their freedom, but we just don't know. It's just like waiting. So,
Yeah, I wonder that too, because you know, I think Harry has spoke out about it a lot. Like,
mm-hmm.
I mean, he sings about being open, he appears open. We know that he's, in a glass closet. We can, use that term, but
Mm-hmm.
he also has spoken out a lot about how he's always been a people pleaser. He's always wanted everyone to like him,
Right.
and that it didn't stop when he was younger. He was an attention seeker and he's an entertainer. So, we don't know how deep it goes really for just how he feels personally about even coming out, or, feeling like he's going to let people down at any capacity, which is, sad because we want him to be, his true self. And I think that he is,
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever really putting on a facade, but like you said, he's not going to use the terminology unless he can
Right. Yeah.
legally do it.
Yes. Yeah. And that also kind of the same thing. I know you guys did like a Olivia. I don't even want to say it out loud, but this is a safe space, right? But like,
Yeah.
you did an episode on it, and that's one big thing with like people are like, oh well, if it's so bad, like why would Harry be with it, or he's forced to be? And it's like, a lot of times with these like stunts and bearding and stuff like that, like we don't know what the other option is. So like this could have been the best option for them. Their two teams came together, and once you sign that contract, there's a specific length of time for it. And I do think it wasn't supposed to be that long. That's just from kind of things that you could have seen that happened, you know, like you can kind of tell that, like, I think things shifted. And so I think it got renegotiated. I really do. And so now it's just going until probably like towards the movie. We won't know, hopefully soon. But like, you don't know what the other option is. So like that could have been in order for him to do My Policeman or another project, or in order to just kind of have his private life, and in order for Louis to release the music that he does with like such like loud lyrics and stuff like that, like they might just have to have these, you know, PR stunts and beards, and they're also like super common. Like almost every relationship you see in Hollywood is fake in some sort of way, even if they're a real couple. Like
they've normalized it.
Yeah, and
you know,
stunting.
and so they've sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say they're stunting even as normal couples just to get their names out there. So like it's all a facade.
But yeah, I also gave the Amy asked me to be a speaker. I don't know if you want to say anything, jump in the discussion or not, maybe.
Oh yeah, what I was gonna say has gone by. I'm like way back, like 10 minutes back. But I was just gonna say that I really do see them making a huge change in the music industry, and not just that, like a whole bunch of people. Like I think this is the time to say something. Like, you know, there's so many people who kind of coming out individually, but if everybody did it like more in a group with bigger names, I think it would make a huge difference. I really do. So it probably won't be like, I mean, it's not going to be like, oh, overnight going to change, but like something has to happen in order for that to happen. Like they have to have like a big, you know, basically like blow off type thing, and then things will kind of like trickle down, is what I believe. But so.
No, I completely agree. And I think like even with like the George Michael documentary coming out, like even things being exposed from like, it doesn't have to be something that's happening right now, but like they're exposing things in the industry like every single day more and more. So I do think change is happening. It's just like, it's not going to be one person, like you said, like but I do think at the same time,
like even the past, you know, just like you said, you know, people are learning more about Michael Jackson, and they're learning more about like all Prince. The other, I mean, even NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. I mean, like, but anyway, sorry, but just like so much, just kind of like collecting together.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think even with Harry, like alone, like we say that it's not on his shoulders, but he's already speaking out more and more every day. All of them are. They've all talked in interviews about how, you know, they were controlled at some point or another, and they're all getting a little more candid about it. And then you see, so I think it's happening. I think it's just
I think
slow.
Harry's going to be a huge, I say this all the time, I think he's going to be a key factor. I say it all the time. So
I agree. Yeah. I don't like to put that pressure on him.
I don't either.
I think he's such an advocate for so many things, and he believes in it so much that like I think he's ready. Like I think he's ready to make a change. I do.
I see that.
I do think both of them are, and that's interesting what you said, Amy. Like, about like the after they will, come out and just speak about what is happening and everything. Yeah, like we also were thinking about doing an episode on that, like what would happen if they would come out eventually.
I mean, I think too many people put. See, I have a lot of opinions. Sorry, I think too many people put pressure on them on coming out. Like, I mean, I love their relationship. I mean, I fell in love with their love, but I think too many people have, and sometimes they lose that. Like, they're two individual people who it's their lives. You know, like it's all good when we jump on, you know, Twitter or whatever, or watch their videos on YouTube, but it's not our lives. You know, like they've helped me a lot. I mean, they've been they're still part of my life, and they've helped me a lot. But it's not my life. I don't live their life, like so. If they do not, I think they want to, but if they do not, or they're not going to come out, I think, but people want them to come out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, like they don't have to be parading around like these other stunts. Like, I mean, like, I don't think they're going to be in the same interviews, every interview, flirt. I mean, because like you grow up, but like, so we're not going to have what we had when they were younger. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But like, I mean, I'm not saying they don't love each other. I mean, they're very much in love. I mean, obviously they made it through all this. But like, I just would hope that you would see them sometimes at their awards, shows,
Right.
or visually being able to see them, be proud and happy, for each other, or like even just things like that, or bring them up. Like, there's been a couple of times where, like, I love when the interviewers, because I know what's going on, will bring something, and then you how they respond. Just kind of, they get like all like blush, or they get their cheeks get a little red, or they just it's cute. But like you won't have to be as cryptic anymore. And that's what I'm. Someday, if they can talk, that's what I'm looking for.
Right.
In my opinion. But.
And I do think, hopefully, that like even if they can't like say that they've been together for 12 years, like maybe they legally can't say that, but I do hope there's a point when like they can at least be together, and they don't have to expose everything in the past, but they can like you said, like go to award shows together and just be at least out of the legal part of it where they can't like go to dinner, like we don't need to see their daily life, but like if Harry wins or maybe Louis wins a Grammy this time, if Louis wins a Grammy, Harry can stand up and clap for him. So that's what I'm manifesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna happen.
Or
What
if
do
they
you
want to like be at the war, like if they want to be at a concert and they want to be in and they can wave. I'm like, they don't have to hide.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how like when what the twins with Louis, the young one, Ernest,
Phoebe and
and she took Louis's hand and like walked him up to the window and wanted them to. That was just too precious. Where like they don't have to hide in window. Like they don't have to like if they don't want to, they don't have to like be all secretive and be up on the way top in the rafters or whatever. So
right.
I mean,
and they don't have to have PR stunts and beards and stuff anymore. They can just like, okay, they're together.
Yeah.
I have
That's
a question. It's kind of off topic, but it just reminded me of it because I definitely want the same thing that like all of you want. Like I don't ever think we're gonna get them like going on paparazzi walks like after all of what they've been through together,
Right.
And
no.
I want the same thing, but I do like I miss them being asked about each other in interviews when it wasn't invasive, when it was cute and like, what do you think about Harry's new haircut, Dunkirk? All those moments, I like those. What do you think happened to stop those moments? Because I think what it's been like since 2017 that we've gotten those, and I'm just curious, like, what do you think?
That's hard because you could definitely see a shift. And I know a lot of people talk about oh my god, why did the word just slip my brain? Like damage control and stuff like that, or like that all of a sudden, I mean, it could be that they just told interviewers that they can't ask about them anymore. It could be as easy as that. Whenever you go into an interview, there are questions that you're not allowed to ask, so it could just be completely off the table. It could be, I don't want to, it could be that their relationship got more serious. I don't know. Like maybe they wanted, like maybe their relationship got to a different level and, it was, or it's harder to hide, or maybe they just didn't want to have the pressure on them. It could come from Louis and Harry themselves. It could be that like they can't answer it in the way that they want to, so they just don't want to be asked, because that would be hard. Like if I was asked about my partner and I'm not allowed to like express myself in the way I want, I'd be like, okay, well then just don't ask me about him. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But that could be
definitely
part of it.
And I think they had to just lie about all of it for such a long
So
time
much.
that that now that they have a bit more control over it, maybe that they do prefer not being asked about it. And
especially if they can't answer the way they want, then they're like,
I was just gonna say, it's just so, like, I hate hearing, like, those moments, like, I mean, none of us know for sure, but we're pretty positive, like, with the Clifford incident, you know, and Harry's, like, initial reaction is to say, oh, he doesn't live here. Like, first of all, how do you know the dog's a boy? He doesn't, you know, it's just, the whole thing is just, and I hate hearing him have to act like that. So you're probably right. He probably doesn't want to deal with it.
Right. And he said himself, he said himself too that he was scared. I know he also said he felt like he had more freedom with his new contract. And I do think his new contract probably gives him a little more freedom, but he still probably has those same like nerves about messing up and saying the wrong thing in interviews. Like you can tell he's a very like nervous, shy person. So it's like he's not good at those things.
No.
So
going back to that whole question thing, if you think about it, why would you want to answer a question that you can't even answer truthfully? So it'd be like, why not? Like, why would I even answer this? Because like I can't say the truthful, the truth anyway. So that just dawned on to me. Yeah, I take
like even Louis being asked about Dunkirk, like I love like those moments, but you could also tell like it wasn't what he wanted to say. At least he was able to say like, oh my God, I'm so proud of him, you know, like you know, it's great, but you could also tell that like he probably wanted to like gush in that moment about like just how proud he was. But, so that is hard.
You can tell though, if you know, because like they can't hide their faces and their I'm like, you have to be a Larry or like someone who kind of knows them, like the general public have no idea, but like you could just tell that he was gushing. I mean, just by like his body language and his facial expression. But so, but you could tell in that moment. Like that's one of my favorite, because
it is.
Those are my favorite moments when they kind of like. I mean, it's not good they're caught off guard, but then they're cute. Like it's cute though, because then it's a genuine reaction. You know, they weren't expecting it, so that was just all real. But.
Yeah, like the haircut one. The haircut was very.
Oh, that was adorable.
Like, yes. So I think that could be, part of it is they just can't control their emotions enough. So I will also say we mentioned something about like having to lie all the time. I'm bringing up Lance Bass again. Like you guys, I've like had fan clubs. Like I was a very big NSYNC fan.
Oh, so, I was too. Definitely.
So Lance Bass also said in an interview that he had a lot of friends and family who were mad at him when he came out about like all the lies that he had said for so many years. And it also like it made it harder for him even when he like came out to like talk about it and to like talk to his family and friends, because he had just had to like he was like wound in like so many lies and all sorts of things. I think his is a little bit different because he didn't come out like in a relationship. I don't think him and Michael were together yet, but so it wasn't like he was hiding a relationship. He was just hiding part of him, which isn't any better, but it's still kind of that same thing where like they've had to lie for so long that it's probably just exhausting. So they're just like, I don't want to lie anymore. So just only ask me about my music. But I don't know.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. And then it makes me wonder, like, well, I think it's kind of apparent that, the people around them know about it, but then they have to lie. And you kind of feel bad for, I think that their family kind of takes it upon themselves to do things sometimes because to take the load off of them. But like, who is that guy? Ollie Murs. I think it's obvious. Ollie knows. Nick Grimshaw. People like that, they know, but they also have had to say things that like I don't agree with. Like Roman Kemp clearly knows, but I've also seen him report on stuff that I'm like, come on, dude.
Right.
That's not cool, because you know the truth, but that's his job.
It's also part of his job.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The amount of times stepped up as well.
Yeah. And that's also
which I think puts them in a bad situation.
Exactly.
He might not want to, but so it's a tough situation.
But it is interesting that, I think the timing is interesting of James and Nick leaving their shows like at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now both hanging out with Niall.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's
something interesting about that.
That's why
whole thing.
there's a lot of stuff going on that just like doesn't seem, I don't want to say normal, but like there's a lot of like little things that are happening that make me feel like
it all
something's
adds
coming
up.
to an end. Yeah.
They're on the same page.
Yeah. They're moving, I have to say, in the same direction. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all going in one direction.
Yes, they're all going in one direction. They're back.
I wanted to ask you a question, maybe, but I don't know if you would be able to answer it. Do you think that, like we can see that Harry obviously is a lot freer in a way, and being able to wave flags and everything. So do you think his contract changed, or did he had like a new one or something like that? And do you think that Louis' contract also changed, or do you think it's still the same?
I think, and I've kind of seen this happen before, where like the contract, I do think he signed a new contract just with Columbia itself, but on like his image changing, I think it started to happen in One Direction. Like you could kind of see that in like 2014, 2015, he was able to say his little remarks and interviews and stuff, and like wave the pride flags even when he was in there. And he started to kind of just, you could tell that it was changing. Like you could tell that like his image was changing. And I think it could be from like a marketing perspective as well. So they may have just allowed him to be a little more free because they realized that it was catching on, and they realized that, and this sucks to say, like, but at the end of the day, it is still money. And if they saw that, like, not all of them were going to be allowed to do that, but if like people were enjoying that part of Harry's personality and they slowly let him be a little bit more himself, and it was catching on and people were loving it, then they're going to let him do it a little bit more. So I don't know if it's necessarily that like the contract changed, but I think they just saw it as not being problematic. His personality should not be problematic to begin with, but you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, they can use it, and it's that back to that manipulation thing and back to the money at the end of the day. If they can use it, then that could be part of it. So
yeah, and a lot of people, like a lot of the fans in One Direction, are queer kids, so they noticed that. Obviously they saw it at the shows, and all of the fans putting the projects together, it was a huge thing. So it was relatability.
Exactly. Yeah, the rainbow direction and all of that, like it was, they were seeing that happen. And I kind of, I almost think Louise may have changed in the opposite direction when that happened, because they wanted to, balance it out. So it's hard for like Harry to go completely one direction. Oh my God, I keep saying One Direction. I'm not meaning to, but him to go like to one extreme, not even an extreme. It was like barely letting him be his full self. But then you have, if Louis was also allowed to do that, then it would just spark everything back up that they tried to hide for so long. So I think like they probably, that's also, Louis signed back on with Psycho. I do think all the people who say that like Louis kind of took one for Harry and for the rest of One Direction, I do think he did. Like I think he signed back on in order to release them, because the timing just works out. Like you can kind of, you can just tell that like that's probably what happened. Is he?
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
I was going to say that it was very much a situation where Louis was told, his freedom or yours.
Right.
Like he gets to do this, but you have to do this to counteract that. Like, who would you prefer to be able to be who they are?
Yeah. I read a theory one time, and I don't know, it just stuck with me. I don't know if I believe in it or anything, but that they wanted Harry to be the one that went through like a whole baby gate kind of thing, and that Louis took it for him, And I don't know if
Yep.
that's true, but like ever since I read it, like I cannot get that out of my brain. And then like him writing Kiwi and like all the stuff that came after it, just like I was like, wow, okay, maybe Louis really took a lot of the heat. And it sounds, and that's the kind of person Louis is too. Like he
It's true.
takes care of everyone and like has such a big heart that like I know he would do something like that. So
You would. Now that you're saying it, it makes a lot of sense.
right? I know.
It does. It's actually crazy. Yeah, because like it would go so well with Harry's image to just be the one going through a baby gate.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
Like
at the beginning it seems like they were just trying to cover up Louis' sexuality with Eleanor. But then you're right, it does seem because they were throwing on girlfriends and the older, like the womanizer image. And
right.
for anyone to like get anyone pregnant or do any of that, it would have made more sense for it to be Harry.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that's a part that I don't think we'll ever know, but
No,
maybe we will.
I hope
Yeah.
not. I hope it does. I hope it doesn't get that far.
No. I mean, I kind of hope we get an entire, if I got like all my manifestations came true, we get like an entire expose on everything that happened.
Oh,
I mean,
that would.
there's like the Lou
Ins-
Pearlman story came out, Britney's had one, George Michael, like there's so many like the Jared Leto and 30 Second to Mars, like there's so many documentaries that,
I hope that's what Charlie's working on.
right? And James Corden ending his show.
Yeah.
And I
To
think
happen.
those are so important
manifesting.
because it can't go back to what it was. Like if you have all these documents, like documentaries, like if they start making a difference, which I really do think they're going to, but like, 50, 60, who knows how long, down the road, they have these be like, no, we can't go back to what that was. So
Right.
I think this, and especially with One Direction, there's like so many things happening. You have closeting, you have baby gate. I mean, there's so many things that they can, like, it's pretty much thrown everything in there. So like if you have something to just say, this is how it was, this is how it went, this is why this happened, I think it's something that'll help prevent it going backwards. Like now, look at with the laws just go backwards. It's insane how they can just, like, they start going one way and all of a sudden they start going the other. So what is say that down the road it doesn't happen, so like I just think it'd be great if they can say what they can, and I know they'll say whatever they can. I mean, there's none of them, like you said, all of them are talking out with what they can, so more and more when they can say more, they're going to do it. But that's just my 2 cents. So but I think it's actually would benefit people.
Yeah, and I was about to say, like, hey, if there's a Sony person that ever listens to this, and I know they love money, they could turn it in their direction too. So like they could say like, hey, like we realized like all this is going on and we're going to make a difference because streaming is taking over. They're going to start losing more and more money. Like people are coming out with independent labels. They're self-releasing albums. They're going on tour by themselves. Louis has a management company. Harry has, Erskine Records. And so like, I might have said that wrong, but whatever. So like they could turn it into their favor before streaming completely takes over and kind of correct their wrongs. I don't know how they would do that, but like if they wanted to, like we could tear down the industry and they could still build it back up in a different way and use it in their favor, So I don't want that to happen. I want them to kind of just like crumble, but it could, if it's the least we could get, it could kind of go in a different direction too and kind of
I
they
think
could use it.
That's the big goal, is just to have it however they can take it a different direction. That's what you do. I mean, to have it crumble, yes, would be awesome, but I don't know. I think sometimes you can't be so picky. You just kind of have to, what you can do to switch it, you just do. But
yes, exactly.
Do we have a speed round question?
Oh God, we do not. Why am I so dumb? I'm gonna look at it.
I think I just take on their like mannerisms a lot. Like I start to like laugh like them.
There you go. Why don't we explain what habits we've picked up from them?
Oh yeah, that is a good thing. That is a great thing. Okay, Tina, you can start then if you've already started.
Yeah, no, I found myself laughing like Harry recently because he does like a, okay, I can't do it. This isn't a visual podcast, but like he has like a very specific like laugh that he does. I do say London's quite big a lot, and
Yeah.
people have no idea what I'm talking about, and I don't know why that one always gets stuck in my head. But I'm like, London's quite big, and they'll just look at me and they're like, "What are you? You make no sense." And I'm like, I make sense to lots of people, just not the people I am around right now. So
I feel I have someone at work whose name's Liam, and every time someone tries to speak to him and they say, "Excuse me, Liam," I have to repeat it.
That's a good one.
But I guess my habits, I've noticed I definitely do Harry's nose scrunch and the swipe
Oh
that
yeah.
he does all the time. And now whenever I drink something, mainly water, I hold it in my mouth like Louis does.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think I got this thing from Louis, which is just like, or I just pronounce words with his accent without even like thinking of it.
Yeah.
Like we were
Mhm.
talking with Sam about like saying proper all the time, which is not something I would say on a normal basis. But I'm just always like, oh, this is a proper thing, and I was just like, "Ugh." Louis got me.
Yeah. I do that a lot too, especially because I don't have anywhere near a British accent. So I just start saying random things in a British accent. Like tattoo.
Yeah.
Tattoo.
No, also.
Yeah. And I often a lot of times say it's just a boat. And that's not even like a big inside joke, but I just love the way that Harry said that. And he's like, it's just a boat. And so I say that a lot. Whenever something's just like I'm trying to evade the question, I'll be like, it's just a boat. Oh, I'm exposing my weirdness to the world, but it's fine.
No, that's fine. I think, Harry and Louis' hands are a bit
Yeah.
special.
And I rub my eyes in public, and I think I look really cute like Harry does. And I know I don't. So I'll like be really tired, and I'm like, oh, I bet I look like cute, tired Harry. And I'm like, no, you don't. You look like you have allergies.
It's
So
your baby brother moment.
yeah.
I had a friend ask me like for relationship advice or like something they could say like to sum up like what they wanted to do with that person. And I totally said, why don't you just tell them like, hey, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. If you just like how to do a lot of fun things with me, that Harry quote, and they used it and they loved it.
That's amazing.
It was great. And they have no idea that it's from Harry though.
That's crazy.
No, and then you just have them ones that are like Niall shouting potato. Or I do a lot of fly, awaken.
That one is good.
Mine's always thank you, Niall.
Oh yeah.
That's
Thank
my
you,
favorite. I don't know why.
Niall.
That's my favorite.
Oh,
Oh,
we've
no.
talked about that before. Yeah. Thank you, Niall. I do that a lot. You're right. Good one. Good one. That's a good one. Where I go pop sugar pop pop. Yeah.
Do we all do the lyric changes when we're listening to the One Direction songs?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
And like also backup vocals, I don't know if we're doing that. They're just doing all voices at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or what
do the
like
background.
yeah. And saying what they say like in their concerts. Like I can't
Yeah.
sing Fearless now without saying give it up for the fucking band. Like I say that every time. And I'm sorry for my British accent, that was really bad, but I have to shout it. I'll shout it in my car and everywhere. So
I love how many people do the you sing
oh
live
yeah.
for Harry. Like that warms my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And even the okay after
I know. It's so good.
okay. Everyone's doing it now. It's so cute. Yeah.
So that's it for today. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Larry Weekly. We hope you've learned something new. If you want to be a part of the journey, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at the Larry Weekly to keep up with all podcast related news and exclusives. Remember to fill out that guest form if you guys want to be able to do the same thing that Tina's done today. And thank you, Tina, for joining us. It was a great one. I loved everything that you had to say. But see you all next Friday for a new refill.